So the track portion of the Civic Type R test drive is complete. We're now back on the road in some back roads in Quebec. I'm driving the Type R in sport setting. The sport setting is the default drive mode. There's the Plus R, which will be sampled at the track, and there's also Comfort. Between the three modes, there are some very obvious differences. I am finding it very nice in sport. And actually, in fact, I was surprised to find that Plus R mode works quite well on the road as well. It is firmer, but this suspension, this adaptive suspension, works so well that even running hard over some railroad tracks, the ride is very smooth. And I felt that just now at the track when I purposely ran over some rumble strips at speed with the chassis loaded and handled the rumble strips extremely well. So much that you really don't have to worry about it. You can absolutely take a line that crosses the rumble strip. Other things I noticed on the track, well, the car that I was driving at my second session, the red car, did have some issues with the rev matching. There was a message on screen that said that rev matching had failed, and indeed it had failed. By default, it is on all three drive modes. It is a little more aggressive in the Plus R mode. But when it failed, I just reverted to regular heel toe. And these pedals, actually discovered, were very good for heel and toe. They're very well spaced, and the brake pedal has the right amount of travel. The brakes are superb. They held up extremely well through our lapping all morning, through the hands of various journalists, and even by the time I got to it, I had the last car in the last session, they still function admirably. I did notice a bit more travel. The pedal travel does move a little more than I would like in a pure track car, but it's not really a complaint. You just kind of get used to it. The steering is very good, it's very direct, it's very precise. Unfortunately, I don't think it has quite the amount of steering feel that I would really like from a world-class steering system. It's a very good steering, just not the last word on feedback. However, it does do something very well, and that is contain torque steer. Honda has put a lot of effort in the front axle to minimize the torque steer. They call it a dual axis front axle, and it works stupendously well. I don't think I've ever driven a front wheel drive car this powerful with this little torque steer. It's almost been completely eliminated. So that's a very, very wonderful thing. You do feel the limited slip differential working when you crank the wheel over and you mash the throttle and get power down. You do feel it working and very subtly tugging on your wheel and pulling the nose of the car into the apex or into your desired direction. So the limited slip works very well. I like that a lot, and I don't think front wheel drive cars should really all have limited slip. It just makes the experience of front wheel drive that much better. What else can I say? The interior is of very good quality. I do quite like these carbon fiber look-alike trim pieces on the dash. I do like the big touch screen. You do get a boost gauge if you like, which is quite amusing to look at. I'm sure some of you will like that a lot. Overall, I think this car is actually very, very good on the street, on the regular road. I mean, in the marketing and in what people kind of perceive a Type R to be, it is supposed to be kind of a pure hardcore track car, and it does do the track thing very well, but actually out on the street, out on the public roads, I'm enjoying it quite a bit. And I think that's largely down to how well tuned this adaptive suspension is. It rides just so well. It's got very tight, firm, very European feeling body control, and I appreciate that a lot. Now I do want to compare it a little bit to what I perceive to be its chief rival, and that's the Focus RS, which I reviewed recently. Compared to the Focus RS, I think the Focus RS probably has the last word on steering feedback. The steering system in the RS I consider world-class and has a shade more feedback than the Type R. In precision and cornering, the weighting of the steering and how precise you get around corners, I think both are equally good. This is of course front-wheel drive, not torque-vectored all-wheel drive in the Focus RS. Focus RS actually is a bit heavier as well, so advantage goes to the Civic in terms of weight. And the Civic also has a limited slip differential, whereas the Ford has open diffs, but it does have active torque vectoring, so that kind of mitigates the fact that it doesn't have a mechanical limited slip diff. The shifter in the Type R is absolutely world class. It is so good. The throws are super short, very mechanical, very crisp, and the weight of the throws is very light, and this shift knob is just superb. It's perfectly spherical in traditional Honda fashion, and this is a kind of car where you want to shift just for the sake of it. And it's mandatory, and I love that. I love cars that force you to own a manual. And it makes it very easy for novice or new manual drivers to enjoy because of that rev match feature that appears in all of the drive modes. You can turn off through the menus manually, and I did have to experience it without rev match earlier. And I can say that is just as drivable for an experienced driver. If you're comfortable with heel toe, it's a great transmission. You can drive it like an old school Type R. You know, I did notice on my second session, the balance did tend towards a little bit more understeer. I think by the end of the morning, being in the last car in the last session, the tires had just overheated and gotten quite greasy. The staff told me they actually had to lower tire pressures a bit because the tires were heating up so much. And after an entire morning of being abused by journalists, I think I can forgive the fact that the tires were a bit worn. But the balance does tend towards a little bit of understeer. That is reassuring. It is the correct way to make a sporting car that everybody can enjoy and drive and be safe doing so. The great thing about a Type R is it is quite throttle steerable. When you do lift off the throttle as you turn in or as you get on the brakes and trail brake into the corner, you can get that rear end rotating in a quite sharp and aggressive way to help you point the nose into the turn. Can you hold? Does it feel like you can hold a slide going into the corner? Probably not. So if you're looking for big oversteer antics, you might have to stick with something like a Focus RS. This car is all about performance, precision, and putting down those mega lap times like they did with the Nürburgring. What else do I enjoy about this car? The seats are very high quality. They're very comfortable on the road. I'm enjoying them right now. But on the track, they didn't hold me quite as well as I would hope from quite a dedicated hardback track day sports seat. The thigh bolsters come up very high and they hold my thighs very well, but it's the back support that I find a little lacking for me. I can move around quite a bit, and I was getting tossed around a little bit, and I was having to brace myself a little bit with the steering wheel, which is never ideal. You want your hands and arms quite free to be precise with your steering inputs. So, but that doesn't apply to everybody. I'm a smaller guy. It may fit you perfectly. The only one way to find out is to try yourself. It's a very cohesive package, this Type R. It's got a very singular focus of being excellent on both the road and the track, and everything about it just screams old school quality, pure Honda engineering. Yes, the engine is no longer NA, but neither was the previous version that we didn't get in North America. I think we've gone away from that now, but what it does retain is that very, very sweet, very, very precise 6-speed manual gearbox and a very, very excellent suspension that works over any type of terrain. I think it's as good of a road car as it is a track car, which I think is a very good compliment to pay a car like the Type R. Enthusiasts all over North America are thrilled that they can finally buy the Type R in their home country. And I think they have every reason to be excited. This Type R is a superb machine and I highly recommend it. Thank you for watching. I'm Sam from CivicX.com. And if you have further questions, come join us on the forum and I'll answer them there.